The movie is called Color Out of Space. And it's one of those Lovecraft movies. They refer to them sometimes as Lovecraftian style. So if you see a movie that is kind of science fiction but kind of not, and a little bit of horror, and possibly going to hit you with massive amounts of color, then there's a good chance that it's Lovecraft inspired movie. And let me just start off by saying Nicholascage was in this movie, and OMG, this is the best Cage I've seen in quite some time. And I go see every Nicolas Cage movie that's out there. I love Nicolas Cage. Never met the guy. And if he does trash, I'll let you know. I don't have a problem with that. This movie starts off with a young lady who is doing some sort of ritual with stone wrapped around the floor, and the stone, she was doing some sort of like praying to the sky, and it was very, very much like, okay, very witchcrafty. It was like, you know, she was praying to the sky, to the stars and to the sky. She burned some hair. I'm just doing my temperature here. I don't want to burn up in this car. And the movie opened up with so much symbolism of Illuminati symbolism is out of, it's crazy. And we're talking about from her hair tie. She had like some sort of like I don't know what would you refer to this as? Just it's like a ribbon, like not a ribbon, but like a hair, something that you like a hair clasp, and that hair clasp was straight up a triangle, Illuminati triangle. And then it flashes to the house that she's from, and what do we have? Triangles everywhere. This movie was so Illuminati symbolism galore. So if you're one of those people who look for symbolisms in movies, whoa, they got it all for you. You're gonna love this. You're gonna be, you know, cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs all for this movie. Anyway, I digress. But let me just say that this movie, with all that being said, was excellent. Some of the best acting Nicolas Cage has ever done. Some of the most realistic. I had chills going up and down my spine, from the tip of my toes to the top of my head, all around my arms, up and down, just waves of just stimulation. Like, oh my goodness, it was almost frightening in some points. It had some scenes that was a little bit like, it reminded you of John Carpenter's The Thing, and also had scenes that reminded you of, you know, let me just say this. We started off with this young lady on the horse, and then who comes walking up the road? A very beautiful, attractive black man, light-skinned man, and he sounds like an American, but we come to find out, when I did a little research on the cast, he's a Brit. But I'm not mad at him. He did a good job. He came across as ADOS. And if you don't know what ADOS is, whenever I do a review, whenever they portray the black person in the movie, I like to find out whether or not he's American black. Fundamentally black, and ADOS stands for an American descendant of slavery. And a lot of these American descendant of slavery roles are all going to the Brits. So I'm never happy about that. I didn't know this to the end of the movie, because had I known that, it would have just tainted my attitude towards the movie. So I waited until after the movie, so 5 minutes before I pressed that button. I looked it up and I see that this guy is a Brit and he's done a lot of TV and things like that. Everyone here done a lot of TV. Nicholascage was like the only one who's really done movies. And I just cannot say enough about how great he did in this movie. He really did really well. And I was impressed. The directing was spot on. From some South African guy, Jeffrey something or another. I don't really remember. Really good. Whatever he does next, I would like to see where that goes. But if we know anything about a Lovecraft story, which this guy, he died at like 46 years old. He started writing. He had like 5 different pen names. Nothing ever popped for him. He started off, and this is according, my source is Wikipedia. So take this with a grain of salt. And because you know what Nikolai Tolstoy said, and he said is that history will be great if only it were true. So I am always questioning what I read on things like Wikipedia. So we got this guy who's a storyteller, and he always writes these stories that represents affluence and represents how we are peons in this world. We're nothing, and at any moment we could be taken out by not the powers that be, but by the things that we do not even conceive of as a reality. We can be taken out by the idea that we believe that we are the only ones on this earth. That idea in itself is what will take us out. And these Lovecraft stories represent that. It represents the idea of man and believing that he is, and when I say he, humanity is so powerful and all-encompassing of this universe. And what Lovecraft taps into is, no, you're not. And at any moment, you can be taken out by what I would refer to, arguably, interdimensional beings that have been here so long because time doesn't exist for them. And we have this young lady doing this sorcery and this witchcraft, and she does this sorcery and witchcraft, and what happens with the sorcery and witchcraft, we find out that the very next day all of this strange stuff is happening, something in which falls out of the sky, this huge, like not even that huge, the size of a 50 BTU, a 5,000 BTU air conditioner, round off the edges, add a little bit of lumps on it. It looked a little bit like molten lava, but round, cocoonish, lands outside the front of their home, very close to their home, like literally, like let's say 60 feet. And mind you, their home is on this land that's surrounded by, not surrounded, but is adjacent to like some sort of lake, some sort of aqueduct. And this aqueduct is how this really handsome black man who's walks up on them, he's doing research on the water because there's issues with the water, and it reminded me of Flint and what Flint is going through and all this kind of stuff. And I think most people would look at this movie and think that there was some sort of black hole that they were entering into, because if we know anything that we've been told about black holes, we find out that black holes are something where time doesn't really truly exist because it's moving so slow. And also black holes are gateways from one point to the other. So this to me wasn't a black hole. It was able to control time and create some sort of bubble, almost like a dome, without seeing a dome. There was no dome, but it was some sort of barrier in this area where it was able to live in control. And what I found really interesting is that this young lady, I think her real name is Madeline Arthur, I believe. Really pretty girl. She has that face, those eyes, those eyelashes. She's like, her body is nothing to write home about, but that face is absolutely gorgeous. And she's like a 22-year-old who's playing the part of an 18-year-old, and she does it well. And there's other siblings in the movie. One is a 25-year-old kid who's done a lot of TV. He's playing the role of like a 15-year-old, and he did a very, 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 very good job. And then there was the child that was like a 9-year-old, 10-year-old, and he also did very, very good. I like the way they had a scene where the clock shows you, and then I was looking at the time of the clock trying to make correlations between the time, and it didn't happen. It was even despite all the opportunities to add more 33s and 66s into the mix, none of that, to me, I didn't see that in this particular scenes. But they show the clock, this girl's just standing there washing dishes, and like 8 hours go by before she snaps out of where she's at. And when she wakes up, she has a cut on her forehead. There's blood everywhere coming out of the sink. So it was a little bit like Amityville. Like, remember when the walls were bleeding? It was almost like that, and it wasn't even that scary, but it was building. The movie built, and the director was spot on in the way he layered the movie and properly layered the movie. And we went into all these emotional roller coasters, and we were there along the ride as, watching this movie. Everyone in the theater was there. We were all present and ready to accept. We were worried about Nicolas Cage character, his daughter, his mother. It was just all of that you cannot get anymore. You see these movies, and it's like you don't worry about these characters in any way. But when Nicolas Cage does a movie, and you get a good director like this, and you got something where it's Lovecraftian style movie, you are going to truly respect going to the movies again. That's what I would say. I would say this movie is a homage to people that enjoy going to movies, because it's a conversation piece. It's a piece where you're going to say, wait a minute, what about this? What about that? I would see this movie again and might go back to see this movie. That's how intriguing it was. That's how interesting it was. I wouldn't say amazing, but it was interesting. Interesting enough to want to go find more, because I know there's more to be seen. And this pod that lands starts to, what appear is, beautify the area around it. Flowers start to bloom, beautiful colored flowers. The fruits and vegetables are all growing from the trees within, what appears to be a day or two. We're getting months and months of foliage are happening, and that's all because of time. One of the things that pissed me off, though, but I liked that it was part of the movie, was that this young lady does all this like witchcraft, like, praying to the gods, and she talked about her mom having cancer, and to take away the cancer, and she burns hair, which appeared to be her own hair, and then all this strange stuff happens, and she doesn't take any responsibility for it. She doesn't stop and take a moment and say, did I cause this? It wasn't until later on in the movie where she starts to like cut herself and try to bring on these, witchcraft style healing properties, reading from these books and these pentagrams and very, very, very demonic stuff she started to try to get into again. But hello, and like she's like in the bed putting this hard rock music on, trying to tune the world out. Hello, it's possible that you're the cause of this. Hello, you're the cause of this. You started this crap. So I don't want to take you to the end of the book and to the last page of the book and say, yeah, this is what happens. I don't want to do that. Go see this movie. Go rent this movie. You are going to truly enjoy this movie. And it's a great movie for people that like movies and people that are into horror, into science fiction, even though there was very little science fiction in it. The science fiction part comes when one of the characters, I'm not going to say who, you have to see it. This character has this moment with this young woman, Nicholascage's daughter. And it was all about the pineal gland. Oh, it was all about the pineal gland, and it was all about that DMT. If you know anything about DMT, DMT is some sort of key, and your pineal gland is some sort of lock. And this DMT works that key into your lock and opens up your reality to the world that we live in. Is not all that you think it is. And there are beings out there. There are living creatures that do not have to worry about time in any way. So if it takes us 1,000 years to figure it out, it could just be moments for them. So we're over here thinking we're solving stuff, but there's creatures out there that are close. And maybe even a little interdimensional, where they're stepping in and out of portholes. And this young lady might have opened up a porthole, and that porthole is what landed this meteorite-style looking round thing that slammed into the ground. And it started to change everything. And it also reminds me of the UN initiative Agenda 2030. It used to be called Agenda 21 for the year 2021, but I believe it's been changed to Agenda 2030. And this is where we're allowing the earth, we're giving the earth back to the earth, and we're going to be ripping up the roads here in America and building these mega cities. And these mega cities are going to be built so that they can allow the earth to kind of like heal itself from us, our damage that we've done. And this movie kind of like discussed that, how this creature or this entity was able to start changing things and didn't have to worry about time. And then all the people around this creature or this life force or this interdimensional being or this alien race or this or is open for interpretation, is open for conversation, it's open for you and your friends to go to the movies or rent this, buy this, and discuss this, because what exactly it is, I don't know. I couldn't take you to the last page of the book. That's what's so great about this, because I don't know. We don't know. But I would argue that this is some sort of... Oh! Let me take a sip. Let me take a sip. I would argue that... I'm not going to argue that, because that's totally crazy land. But that's what's good about this movie. It allows crazy land to exist. And just the guy who had that glimpse of what it was that was going on was truly amazing, and wasn't even scary. It just was, you know, like, isn't there like some sort of expression about how things are, that's just, they are what they are, they just are, and this just is. And this young lady opened up this window to this just is, and it's like it comes down, and it, like, you know how a person would pray, God, show me a sign, show me a sign. Do you really want a sign? You sure about that? Because God's interpretation of a sign might not be what you're ready for. Possibly God's interpretation of a sign might change you. The way Agenda 21 and Agenda 30 from the UN, United States of America, UN initiative, is trying to give back the earth and change the earth. Move us all into mega cities and then have the earth just grow and live and be there and like change it, evolve it. This movie shows you that there are entities that can evolve at will, whatever it is, because the way these entities were able to grow the flowers, grow the vegetables, and then still get into the animals and transform the animals into some sort of something we didn't know and never made it to find out, because Nicholascage's character went in there with the shotgun and he laid down all the animals in the barn. And then when it was time for him to lay down his wife, because his wife and his youngest son, the 9-year-old, got caught up in some sort of wave that came from out of the barn, and this wave of light, hence the movie Color of Space, was able to fuse the mother and son together into this sort of, it reminded me of the movie The Thing by John Carpenter, how it was able to just link everything together and just slowly start to create some sort of new life form. And there was the scene where the mother and son joining and creating and kind of like, you know, meshing and becoming some sort of creature, a very Lovecraftian creature. And she attacked the daughter. It was almost to the point where she was like raping the daughter. They didn't show it like that, but in my mind, that's what I was like, whoa, is she penetrating the child to some degree? And an officer got involved along with that black guy who I don't know why I hate just keep calling him the black guy, but there was only one black guy in the movie. And I was so thankful that they didn't kill him off right away. It's so refreshing to see movies where they're not killing off the black guy. I hope it's not because they're all just, you know, British actors, you know. And had he been really ADOS, they would have shut him down. But no, I digress from that. I'm teasing. But Nicholascage was so spot on. Spot on. Oh, so good. I'm not gonna. The movie's so good, I don't want to talk about it. Unlike the other movies where I almost break down scene after scene, this had scene after scene of greatness. This had scene after scene after scene after scene of something you want to see. 2 thumbs up. 3.5 out of 5 stars. And an 8 out of 10. I give this movie. Really good. It never takes you to the ending of the book. It never takes you there. It just allows you to, it's like this movie opens up the book for you, and it gives you the synopsis. It gives you basically a few chapters, and then it just kind of like lets you see just how little you truly are. Just how much of a peon you are. It's like this girl did all this like witchcraft stuff trying to heal her mother from cancer, which they don't talk about in the movie at all. Oh, that's not true. They did talk about the cancer. When Nicholascage was kissing all over the mother in the first like 15 minutes of the movie, trying to get him some that night, and she said, I can't believe you'll touch me now that I don't have that. So they might have been referring to augmentation, where she had her breast removed or something to that effect. So they did tap into that a little bit. Anyway, I like the movie. You should go see the movie. This is my review. Color of Space. Boom.